This was introduced only in the 5th edition of PMBOK. Before that, there was no stakeholder management. All the things which were mentioned in the stakeholder management, in a subset of that, they were part of the communication management. So this chapter is forked from has come from communication management with then some additional stuff which make quite sense here. And by making it a separate chapter, what is the message you want to give, that this stakeholder management is not a side business. It is moreover in the project. If I tell you this is the main objective, or this is the main management key area, then it will not be wrong. Everything else goes after stakeholder management. In fact, the purpose of the project to keep stakeholders satisfied and use them for the maximum use on the project, so the project runs smoothly. So taking their inputs timely manner, in appropriate manner, and giving them back what they look from the project is what the project is all about. And all other activities are happening because of this. Okay, so what the objective here is identify the people, group, or organization who are connected with the project, who have give and take from the project, and understanding their expectation and addressing them. Now, what do you mean by a stakeholder is? Can you give what you understand a stakeholder is? Who is a stakeholder? Who is a stakeholder? All involved or affected. Okay. Management, client, user of the system. Okay, that's right. Management, people, team, etc. That's also fine. But if you name like that, you will never be able to create an exhaustive list. And therefore, I will go with more towards what Anil said, all involved or affected. And I say it like this: a person who has to give something to the project, or who has something to take from the project, is a stakeholder. A person who can contribute to the project or who has a takeaway from the project is a stakeholder, whomsoever that person is. And let me tell you about the stakeholder. The most important stakeholder on your project could be the person who you have just missed to identify. Let me repeat. The most important stakeholder on your project could be that person you missed to identify as a stakeholder. That person may appear all of a sudden in some time in the project, and because of his influence on the project, because of his power in the project, that person will greatly impact the outcome of the project. It can change the direction of the project. It can even close the project. You might have not identified this person altogether as a project, as a stakeholder on the project. And therefore it's very important that to identify all stakeholders of the project. So once you identify suspect a person could be stakeholder, we keep him in the stakeholder register and keep watching. Okay, we do not leave anybody outside. Like risk, once one is identified, we put this into the watch list. If we see there is no immediate impact or there is no significant impact, but we do not reject it. Similarly, if we have a little doubt that stakeholder, this person could have some takeaway or can give something to the project, we put them in the stakeholder register and keep him. And keep watching him, his action, activities, etc. Because the idea of this chapter to understand how we can develop strategies for stakeholders to keep them satisfied. How? By engaging them. The main thing is how we can engage stakeholder in the project to give and take away in a natural manner, not very differently treating them, but engaging them in the project, documenting their issues and needs or any conflict or any other interest, and forming strategies to address them in a timely manner. That is what this chapter is all about. This chapter is also small, come out from the communication management. The first thing is identify stakeholder, which is a part of the project initiation. So in project initiation, there are only two things. One is identify stakeholder, second is project charter. So after project charter, what you do is identify stakeholder. And therefore I prefer this chapter may come in the beginning of the things, and many, like if I'm not, this is not a PMP oriented training, I discuss stakeholder management in the beginning, just after charter. Okay, then we have to plan the stakeholder management, manage them, and see that whatever we have planned is being executed. In initiation, this is the second process, and then plan, manage, and control. Okay, so identify stakeholder means identifying all stakeholders, doing a stakeholder analysis, and creating a stakeholder register. How we do stakeholder analysis? We do stakeholder analysis by these two methods. First method is very common, is quite popular. Though stakeholder analysis is not so popular, but whatever popular in that, the first idea is more popular, second is less popular. Let me start from the second. This is called Salience Model. In this Salience Model, the stakeholders are categorized in 7 different categories. Okay, these 7 categories are mainly driven by 3 factors called power, urgency, and legitimacy. Power means the person has power to change the result or the course of the project. Urgency means the person needs something from the project on a timely basis. And legitimacy means he has a rightfulness in the project. Like a person is identified as a client project manager. Client project manager has a legitimacy in the project. Based on this combination, we put stakeholders in different categories. One is called dormant. What is dormant? Has power but no legitimacy and urgency. So that may not normally do not participate in project activities, but is still a project stakeholder. Second is discretionary. That means the person has legitimacy but not given power. Your client project manager could be one of them, not necessarily, because if he has power, then he falls in 4 than anything else. Demanding. Third, people are urgency, people depend upon the results of your project or the outcome of the project, but they neither have power nor any legitimacy. So they may be like bothering you a lot, but keep poking in their nose into this, but you may not be bothering too much about them, but they are important stakeholders. 4 are dominant, means the legitimacy with the power. Your client project manager is normally falling into this. 5 is dangerous, that is has power. There is no legitimacy, but he needs a lot of information from you. Fifth is dangerous. Okay, yes, dangerous is this, and the sixth is dependent. Because the power is absent, he has legitimacy, but and urgency also, but power is absent, so become dependent. So from dangerous, the person become dependent. And 7 is that he has all three. Then is a called a definitive, but there are only always few stakeholders in this category. We need to be closely monitoring them. Okay, everything else is the non-stakeholders. Now let's come to the first one, or we can say, normally we categorize all the stakeholders in 4 quadrants. So this goes like that. The first quadrant is low interest and low power. Okay, high interest, low power. High power, low interest. High power, high interest. High interest, high power. Okay. Low interest and high power. Sorry. Now there are 3 things normally goes into this. One is power, another is called interest, and third is called influence. So power means the person can change the course of the project or can have the significant impact on the project's outcome. Interest means the person has more takeaway from the project. He dependent on you on this. His results impact this person. And influence means the involvement of the person in the project. How much involvement, more the involvement of the project, of the person in the project is, more he can influence the result. So basically when we measure the degree of influence, we measure the degree of influence by degree of involvement. Here we are mapping as either through power interest, power influence, or influence impact. We do not put a degree of influence versus interest. That may not have much impact. So let's take a typical thing which is quite common. So all the stakeholders in the project, we normally try to map in these 4 categories. For example, your client's project manager. What do you think where he stand? Your client's project manager. The manager from your client side. Where do you think he can be mapped? HL means high interest, low power. Okay, you see either this side or that side. High interest, low power, or HH. Why you think a project manager, like if you are a project manager in a project, do you think you have a authority, you have a power to do something in the project? And don't you think that your fate is also depend upon the project fate? How you prove that you are successful or not? By saying that project is successful, you are successful. The project is not successful, you are not successful, right? Isn't it? If you are a project manager. And don't you think you have been given power because you are going to control the project? Right? So the normally managers, if he either is appointed by the vendor or the customer, is normally have a power in that, and definitely has interest because his future depend upon this project. So normally you can map him somewhere here, right? What about your team member? High interest, low power. Right? Their interest is high because their future depend upon this project. But they don't have power in they can't do anything. If they want to change something in the project, it may not be possible for them. Right? Therefore, your team members will fall into this category. You may be you may be seeing that there's some vendor management team on your client side, right? If you have a client, you see there are some people called vendor management team who takes care of your enrollment, who takes care of your how you're doing something. They bring the contractor for all the work happening in the project in the organization, right? But they are not involved in any of the project. They are normally falling into this. Their interest is vendor management. So their interest is low in the project. They don't bother about what is happening in the project, but their power is high. How their power is high? Because if somebody goes to them, or if they find that the vendor is not doing right, they have a power to cancel or remove the vendor, or even tell the internal team that this vendor is not going to work. You identify another vendor. So their power is very high, but their interest is low. And I have seen most of the projects, they do not consider vendor management team as a stakeholder also, while they have very high power. And who is here? Low power, low interest. Who you think should fall into this monitor? Users? Do you think users have low power? I think they are very highly interested, and their interest is low. They're going to impact very greatly if you do something wrong in the project. In fact, they are the most impacted party if the project doesn't go well, even if they don't have power in the project. In my opinion, they have a high power also. They should be mapped to HH. Your support function, your admin, your HR. HR could be powerful in some time. Even admin could be powerful in some time. When you need something, some room, etc., they have a power to give you something. HR when you recruit the team. But after that, it's their interest is low, their power is also low. They can't change things in your project. Right? So all the support function normally fall into LL. So there are two things. All the support function, they neither have too much interest in the project, nor they are having any power, much power. Also, if you have a stakeholder which you are not decisive that where it should fall, or you don't have much information, you often keep him here so that you can keep a watch on that person. if he is moving in any of the other category. Once you do this analysis, you create a project, a stakeholder register, where you talk about the stakeholders, you talk about how he is involved in the project, which class or which category he mapped to, like keep satisfied or manage closely, monitor kind of things. In the previous exercise we did, how this person, if does not do intended thing or do something different, can impact the project. What is the impact on the project? What is the impact on the project? And then identifying a potential strategy which we can refine when we do analysis. Okay, further analysis with the planning we can define this, but potential strategy, how we're going to deal with this person. We have to do this with each and every stakeholders. Now this is missing, and therefore this is one of the reasons for project failure, especially fixed bid projects. Then we come to the planning of the project, a stakeholder management plan. And a stakeholder management plan, the stakeholder register is one of the input. We normally do some analysis on that and create a stakeholder management plan. What is the plan? The plan is to create a strategy or refine the strategy, potential strategy, which you have documented in the stakeholder register just now. How we can effectively engage stakeholders in the project. That is what primary intent of planning the stakeholders. Now what is this analytical skills and how we will do it? It is called analytical skills, but it is a stakeholders analysis technique. We will say, once we have identified the people, and categorize them in monitor, and keep satisfied, keep informed, or closely manage, we need to see what is the current state of the stakeholders and where he's supposed to be. So in that say, we put the stakeholders in 5 stages. The first thing is he's unaware of his involvement in the project. He is not aware about the project, or he is not aware about how he is going to contribute or how he is going to take away from the project, about contribution and take away. Resistant means what you are trying to do in the project is what he is resisting. Only non-favorable. A neutral is one that you are doing something, he is neither on resisting nor supportive. Supportive means he is on your side. Whatever you are trying to do is normally support your changes, your initiative. Leading means he has taken a control, like you normally take control as a project manager of the things. He has taken a control of few of the things and he is driving those things. That is called leading. He is actively involved in the project and he is influencing a project considerably. Now this is a possibility that a person you want to be supportive, but he is currently resistive. And to managing the stakeholder management plan means putting up a plan to move this stakeholder from this to this, from resistant to supportive. How we can move the person from his current state to supportive. He is unaware towards leading or supportive. He is a neutral. Let's put him in the leading position. How we can do that? So we create a map like this, where we say stakeholder 1, he is currently unaware, but we want him to be supportive. So C stands for current state. And this is a desired state. So we want, his current state is unaware, we want, our desired state is to be supportive. Stakeholder 2 is currently neutral and we want to move him to the supporting. Stakeholder 3 is currently supportive and we do not want him to move here and there. Based on this is called Stakeholder Engagement Matrix. Based on this, we prepare our plan, and this is the stakeholder management plan, which normally contains identify the management strategy required, how we can engage the person, how we can move a person from current state to desired state, what kind of changes going to support or he is going to impact, what information they need, what information they're going to contribute, how we can take their contribution in the project, how we going to keep them satisfied by providing the information they are looking in, what format and what frequency they need. And that is the input for the communication management plan, right? So that we update the stakeholder register with these things, that this person need this information at this point of time, at this interfrequency, in this format, and that becomes a communication need input to the communication management plan, right? What's up? Can you mute yourself if you do not want to speak? The third thing once you have prepare a plan, the stakeholder, then is to based on that plan, you act and engage a stakeholder in the project. How do you do it? By engaging the stakeholder at appropriate stage, by negotiating them, by giving and take what they are looking for and what we are looking from them, what are their concerns, what are their issues, and addressing them, seeing their changing needs, seeing their changing state, seeing their changing categories, and changing our strategy accordingly, and then acting on that. That will help us to engage the stakeholders in our project. So mainly the things which are required is the interpersonal skills, how you deal with the people. A change log is an input here. As I said, issue log is an input in the communication plan, and it should be, and I say it should be a tool. In my opinion, change log is also be here. It is a very important tool to engage a stakeholder in the project. And this issue log should also be here. It's not an output, it's a tool to manage issues of the project. But from the PMP exam point of view, please see it is an input and this is an output. So you use your trust building exercise qualities, how your conflict management qualities, your listening qualities, your speaking qualities, your dealing qualities with the other people, how you respond to resistance, how you neutralize the resistance, and how you can move from one state to another state. Those are all our interpersonal skills used to implement your stakeholder management plan and moving people to the desired state or keeping them satisfied. Issue log is an important tool, and that which will help us to document all the issues and take them to the closure. If you don't have an issue log, there will be quite a few issues which maybe you will find pending and you may not be knowing about. Then it comes the control stakeholder engagement. That is basically to check that what you put the plan, now what you are executing, are they in sync? If they are not in sync, then bringing them in sync. Work performance report data will talk about that what exactly we have done. We have a stakeholder management plan here which tells what we planned, identify the difference and reporting that difference here, and raising change request means bringing change in our stakeholder management plan to be more effective and stay on plan. So issue log is an input. In my opinion, it's a very good tool, but anyway, then you have a tools and technique. Information management system normally come into picture, which is help us to store, retrieve data, the information about the stakeholders and what they need and providing them information. And the output will be the actual versus or plan versus actual and the changes you are suggesting to fine tune your plan and execution thereafter. And that's the overall stakeholder management. Do you have any question?